I watched every Jessica Alba movie. You might be thinking to yourself, why? Stop yourself now, okay? Don't get too into your head about why we're doing this, alright? I mean, honestly, you're the one who clicked on the video. So, maybe look inward. Alright, we're all Jessica Alba fans, okay? So let's get on with the video. So, Jessica Alba has starred in a lot of movies, right? Well, I watched 29 of them, which may sound kind of fun at first, but when you start scrolling through the IMDb and you start to realize what kind of movies you're in store for, some might call it masochism. And it's no shade against her, there's just some not great films on this list. But that's not what we're here for, right? We're here for a journey, we're here to test something out that didn't need to be tested, and I'm here to give you the results, okay? So, let's go over the criteria for this video. First off, I'm not watching any TV shows. No reality shows, and no movies where she stars as herself. Second to that, and this is a big one, if she is not one of the main 3 cast members, or at least in the movie for more than 30% of the movie, it's not making the list. And trust me, there's a lot of films on this list where she's not in more than 30% of it. I didn't realize that and ended up watching just about the whole movie before I'm like, wait, where the f*** is Jessica Alba? I'll also be rating each film based on a specific list of criteria that I've determined so that we can decide what the best Jessica Alba movie experience is. And then that way, you can just go watch the best one. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll be rating her performance in the film, the amount of screen time she has in the film, and the quality of the film overall. And then on a scale of 1 through 5, I'll be rating my personal enjoyment of the film, and of course, her attractiveness in the film, which, spoiler alert, she gets 5 out of 5 across the entire board. So, there you go. But that's our criteria, those 5 categories. They'll be added up at the end, and we'll go through our least favorite to our best favorite, to the best Jessica Alba movie. Too much rambling, let's jump into it because we got a lot of films to go through. Okay, starting with the first film on the list is a 1998 film that was made direct for TV and ended up getting purchased by Disney Original Films and was put on the Disney Channel. That movie is called Punks.
3,800-pound clutch, poly double pumper, and a chrome-plated dual snorkel air cleaner. Pretty trick, so what's shaking?
And honestly, Punks, I had a lot of fun watching this movie. That was about the era that I was watching Disney Channel original movies, so seeing Johnny Tsunami in this movie was actually really fun for me because that was a favorite film of mine. It had the kid from The Sandlot, and, you know, it was just like your classic Disney Channel original movie, right? A bunch of kids that get into some spy shit. But Henry Winkler was in it as the villain, and he was really fun and overdramatic. I thought it was actually, like, above the standard quality line of what a Disney Channel original movie can be. There's a couple of scenes where, you know, the team falls apart and they have to regroup and band back together, and he gives a big speech, and it actually was pretty moving. I liked it. As far as Jessica Alba goes in this movie, she doesn't appear until about 30 minutes in, so I was getting close. I was checking the watch, and I'm like, do I keep watching this or not? But we're at the beginning of our journey, and this is the first film. We're gonna stick it out. Well, Jessica Alba appears about 30 minutes in, and she works at this mechanic shop. And I actually thought it was a pretty fun character because she's the tough one of the group. She's the only girl in the group. The rest are a bunch of boys. They always back down to the bullies and back down to the conflict, but Jessica Alba's the one who's like the tough guy. And I actually thought that was kind of fun. Granted, she does do a bit of a over-the-top, cheesy, kind of like Bronx accent type thing going on. It just reminded me of like drama kids playing in their theater class and kind of exaggerating their accent. So admittedly, her performance really wasn't that great. I mean, it was a kid's movie, so you can't judge it too harshly for that. There was a couple of pretty funny lines, though.
We better crash to your guys' places for a while in case they come after us.
Oh, sure. Hi, Mom, Dad. This 14-year-old girl's just sleeping over tonight. Don't mind me. I'll be upstairs in my room entering puberty. Are you nuts?
Punks. It was better than expected, but I definitely wouldn't rewatch it. So anyway, let's get moving on. We have a lot to go through. Now, the next film she was in was 1999, Never Been Kissed. Yeah, that's right. The Drew Barrymore classic high school coming of age movie, Never Been Kissed. Drew Barrymore, she's actually undercover as a student because she recently graduated, but she goes back to school and then she ends up having a fling with one of the teachers in her class. The teacher should know she's underage, but he continues to go out on dates with her anyway, and we as an audience are supposed to accept it. So it's actually crazy that this movie had this kind of commentary, and it doesn't even address it as being weird. It kind of makes us empathize with him a little bit, because he's like, oh, it's wrong, I shouldn't do this. And then when it's revealed she's not a student, it's like, oh, thank God. And then they're able to be together. Anyway, I watched this movie like last year with Vanessa, my wife. We had no idea Jessica Alba was in this. Jessica Alba plays a side bully character in it, and it is one of the worst performances I've ever seen from Jessica Alba. I'm sorry to say, but it might be the worst performance on this list. Not to mention it's a trash movie, but thankfully for her, she doesn't have enough screen time for it to qualify for this list. So, Never Been Kissed, not making the rankings at the end.
Who are you guys? Wait.
Okay, next one up, Idle Hands from 1999. Much better Jessica Alba performance here. Idle Hands is kind of a stoner horror comedy classic at this point. Jessica Alba is probably only in just barely 30% of it, so it barely qualifies, but it is a good, fun movie if you haven't seen it, with Seth Green and, don't remember anybody else from it off the top of my head. I wouldn't consider it a Jessica Alba movie, but she is in it, and it's really fun. I think it's a fun horror comedy, so check it out.
It's Mighty Joe Bong! Or the...
You didn't stop with your friend? Unbelievable!
Okay, the next one is from the year 2000, and this is an indie film that I'd never heard of before. It's called Paranoid, and this stars, of course, the one and only Jessica Alba as a main lead role. This would be her first leading role in a film, and she holds her own. I think she does a really good job in Paranoid. I was very impressed by her performance here. Also, the story itself, it's a horror movie. It starts out and Jessica Alba is portraying a runway model. She's kind of in this whole world of fashion models and runway models, and she's used to getting what she wants from men. She has multiple different side pieces, but ultimately there's this new guy in her life that's promising her future help with her career and invites her on this weekend getaway. Well, she goes away to this house, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It takes place in England, by the way, the whole film. So a lot of the other actors in it are British actors, including Jorah Mormont from Game of Thrones, which I didn't write his name down, and I don't feel like looking it up. Ian Holm, that might be his name, Ian Holm, just based on memory, but I could be wrong about that. I really like him. He's in this movie and plays a big part in it, but she goes to this house. His ex-wife shows up to this house, and a bunch of other friends from this old rock band he was in are at this house. Well, Jessica Alba goes to her room. She decides to go to bed, and the boyfriend leaves in the middle of the night. And now she's trapped at this house with a bunch of random strangers, and she's asking to leave. And they're like, you're going to have to wait till tomorrow. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's no taxi cabs that come here. And it's becoming apparent that a lot of these other people in the house are very strange. They're very odd. And they have this daughter who's mute, and she has a golf ball in her mouth that she sometimes drops and it rolls down the stairs. It's really creepy, actually. But she kind of realizes through this movie that she's possibly being preyed upon by the people in this home. And I won't spoil for you how it all turns out, but I actually found this movie to be very suspenseful and her performance to be really, really good in it. So I was impressed by Paranoid, and I definitely would recommend watching Paranoid. That was probably the first good movie on this list, and it was one I hadn't heard of. And I had to track it down through some shady-ass website on my phone that I pulled up, and, you get a bunch of spam that you're constantly Xing out of. Eventually, you get it to populate on your screen, and then I could screencast it to my TV. So I don't necessarily recommend watching it that way, but I couldn't find it anywhere else. So sometimes watching something in 480p or 720p actually adds to it, and the shitty quality in which I watched this movie, I felt really enhanced the experience. Take with that what you will, but that's a lesson. We're taking lessons as we go through this journey. All right, moving on. Ian Glenn, that's the name. Came to me. Okay, next up was the James Cameron TV series Dark Angel, which ran from 2000 to 2002. Now, we're not covering TV series, but this does feel like a pretty integral part of the Jessica Alba history. This was a leading role that she was on TV for in a James Cameron TV show. So she got a lot of attention on this show, and I think a lot of the acting roles that came to her after this were in big part to this TV show. So Dark Angel, I watched this one growing up. I used to record it on the DVR. I actually remember really enjoying it, but then again, I was a Jessica Alba fan and I was a young boy, so that's probably why. Maybe it's still good. Check it out. Okay, but the next real movie on this list is called The Sleeping Dictionary, which came out in 2003. And apparently this was shot in like 2000, so this actually came before Dark Angel or during the beginning of it, but it took like quite a few years to actually come out. There was a lot of troubles to the production because they went and shot on location in Borneo with all locals and a complete lack of infrastructure. So according to reports, this was a pretty terrible time filming for a lot of the cast and crew. It's a period piece set somewhere in the early 1920s or 30s. It follows our main character, who's a student who recently graduated school and is on a British schooling retreat to this island where he's supposed to learn from the culture and people as they're kind of looking to expand the British Empire and rule at the time. And he is assigned a sleeping dictionary. And what that is a local native will stay with a foreigner and actually sleep in the same bed with them, live in the house with them, and basically be a housewife who also teaches them the native language. So Jessica Alba is the sleeping dictionary who is assigned to our main British young lad. A little bit of controversy around this one. I guess I don't know how true the whole sleeping dictionary thing is. It sounds like that might be written up as a bit of a fantasy by some of the original stories and ideas this was based on. Also, Jessica Alba is playing a native person to this island that is set in Borneo. I don't know exactly what the culture is, but she's playing someone outside of her own race because she's actually like a mixed Latin American. I did read some things about it, how it was kind of considered like an infringement on specifically like more Asian culture than anything else. I don't know if I'm the one who should speak towards like the racial element of it, because like me as a viewer who doesn't know any better is just like accepting of it. Other than the fact that she does have an obvious accent and she speaks with broken English. She's pretty good in it. I mean, I don't know. The movie was mixed for me. It's like I was fairly engaged in it, but then it just kind of lost me and then it just kind of went on too long, and Jessica Alba becomes caught in a love triangle with him and the British like fiance that comes to stay there too. And it wasn't really my jam. There is some nudity in this movie, but Jessica Alba does not do nudity. So that is a body double. I don't know why that's necessary to say here, but I read all the trivia and shit on IMDb and I learned about this. So, whew. Okay, so next on this list is 2003's Honey. Now, Honey is another interesting, controversial race character for Jessica Alba because in this movie, she is half black. The last movie, she was kind of Asian and Islander, and in this movie, she's half black. So she does have that kind of racial ambiguity in which she can kind of diversify and play different roles. However, I will say she kind of puts on this type of speech in certain situations, whether it's just early 2000s lingo, trying to be kind of hip or with the hood, and it just does not work. I don't know. She sticks out like a sore thumb in some scenes compared to the castmates around her. There are other scenes where she's surprisingly good and very relatable and likable. So it felt more like the script was written for someone else. And whenever she had to deliver lines that just don't work coming out of her mouth, they just didn't work coming out of her mouth. But turns out the script actually was written for someone else. The script was originally intended for the R&B singer Aaliyah, who unfortunately passed away before filming the movie began. She's also popularly known for her last acting role in the movie Queen of the Damned, where she wasn't able to get around to recording all of her audio, so she was dubbed for that movie, but that was her last on-screen performance. So she would have been an African-American actress who would have played the role, and apparently they also reached out to Beyonce to play the role. Ultimately, they settled on Jessica Alba, and it does feel a little bit like the script doesn't match her. But I will say, she is supposed to be a dancer in the film, and it seems like she does a really good job with the dance choreography and with all the movement in general. It is a bit of a rags to riches journey, where she is just like a passionate dancer with a local dance school, and then she ends up choreographing popular musicians' music videos. And then about 5 or 6 other subplots come into play that constantly tell her that she should be listening to her heart, and how she's abandoning everyone, and yada yada yada, morals and themes and stuff like that, which just becomes too bogged down. It doesn't really work. I didn't really care for this movie, but she did give a surprisingly really good performance sometimes and a really bad performance sometimes. So it's very split down the middle in this one. Oh, and I wanted to mention too, even though her dance choreography is good, for whatever reason, the movie just felt like it was unwilling to commit to longer dance sequences. It felt like every time a dance scene started, it only went for about 1 minute. After that minute, every time the dance scene or whatever just got interrupted, the music stopped and something dramatic started to happen. So there was never a continuous full-on dance scene at all in the movie until maybe the end where there's this benefit concert about the kids. But then it's like the kids and it's a different part of the story. But like Jessica Alba and her whole storyline, there's never like a full dance sequence, which I don't know. I just noticed that and thought that was interesting. Though I say she seemed to fit in with the dance choreography, maybe there were some limitations and that's why the movie didn't have that. Or it could have simply been for a matter of pacing. But in a movie focused on dance, you'd think there would be like longer or fuller dance sequences. So I was taken aback by that. Also, the little boy, the youngest boy, he was hella cute. I really liked him in it. This movie just reminded me a lot of Too Fast, Too Furious. Like, I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why. Okay, 2005. This is the first like real big budget film that Jessica Alba is in, and it's Robert Rodriguez's Sin City, an all-time classic. It's one of my favorite movies. I think you're obviously aware of this movie if you're watching the video. The movie is broken up into like 4 different storylines. It's based on different comics that all kind of come together and weave together. But Jessica Alba's character, she's kind of in it throughout because she is a stripper that works at the local dance club that multiple characters frequent. But her main storyline is tied to Bruce Willis. I think it's a really great character arc and storyline for Jessica Alba. It's maybe one of the best roles she's gotten thus far. Well, definitely one of the best roles she's gotten thus far. She is really a tough as nails character who kicks away any other guy, any other situation, and is just like loyally devout and in love with Bruce Willis. But he views her as like his daughter, so it becomes this really complicated situation between the two of them. It's one of the most fascinating and endearing storylines from both Bruce Willis and Jessica Alba, and I actually really love this whole movie though. I mean, everything about this movie is great. Because her character is only a focus in one of the storylines, which is broken up into 2 parts, naturally her screen time is lower than other movies, so that is going to hurt it in its ranking a little bit. Something to be aware of when we get to the end of this and we see the rankings. 2005 was a big year for Jessica Alba, because the next film she's in is the Fantastic Four, which is the huge superhero phenomenon that spawned the whole idea of this video, because this is a tie-in for the 2025 Fantastic Four movie. That's what we're here for, to make comparisons. But the 2005 Fantastic Four movie, Jessica Alba is one of the main 4 characters. She plays Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman. The movie was kind of critically panned and didn't really go over so well with audiences either. But it is kind of weird because when you look at IMDb, like Honey and Fantastic Four have a very similar rating, but Fantastic Four is a much better movie. Like, I actually really had a lot of fun watching Fantastic Four. It had been forever since I'd seen it, but what it did for me was it reminded me how much I love the colorful and playfulness of superhero movies, something that has not existed for me in Marvel or DC in so long. This era of superhero film and its willingness to just be campy and cheesy and colorful and bright and big is something I do miss. There's this whole scene where they're outside of X Games and just all the advertisements and everything that's around. I'm like, holy shit, this is nostalgia. This is 2005, man. Like, I don't know. I had a whole like trip down memory lane watching it. So nostalgia is playing a factor into my enjoyment here. But also Chris Evans is such a great Johnny Storm. Like, and of course he brings with him a whole level of sex appeal to counter the sex appeal Jessica Alba is bringing. It's a very sexy superhero movie, which at the end of this video I'll get into a little bit more, because there is aspects of over-sexualization that are happening here, and there are like scenes where she has to strip down naked to go invisible and have no one see her, and then of course that comes back up and she has to cover up like on the bridge and stuff. I don't know, for a kids movie it's a very early 2000s kind of thing to do, but on the flip side Chris Evans has the same kind of scenes. Oh, but that is what I will say. Like, I think Jessica Alba gets some shit for being a bad actor, but I don't think she's bad in this at all. I think sometimes, like, the studio or the direction of how they want her to appear is more important than her actual, like, acting and the script writing, of course. But I think she's supposed to come across as a very smart character and having conversations with Reed about computer science, and she actually does a great job doing that. I think she really nails it. The words don't sound weird coming out of her mouth. What doesn't work well is the scripting and the fact that she's supposed to be really into Reed Richards' character, and he's just like this bumbling idiot who never really picks up on the fact that she's into him. But it's like, why is she still so into him? It's just like her character is really flat in that sense. Like her only serviceable thing for the movie is to just be the love interest and to be someone who's between Reed and Victor Von Doom. But she seems to be so open and willing to Reed the whole time, but it's like they never really give us like a reason for that, because Reed actually has absolutely nothing to offer romantically as far as the movie is concerned and portraying. But it does suck that her whole plot line comes down to something so basic and simplified like that. Okay, 2005 this is our third movie from 2005, and this is another really iconic Jessica Alba film, Into the Blue, because of this poster. This poster. We're all familiar. The movie itself is actually a pretty decent movie. I really do enjoy Paul Walker. I have a fondness for this era because I was like 12, 13, 14, somewhere around this time frame. And I used to watch, Fast and the Furious with Paul Walker, and this just kind of fell right in line with that. Oh, and Josh Brolin is in this. I had no memory of that, but he plays one of the villains in the movie, or the villain, and he's really good in it. Scott Conn is really fun and entertaining in it. I do think the movie is a lot more interesting in the first half. So it follows a bunch of deep sea divers and their love for treasure hunting and exploring under the sea and fish and shit like that. So yeah, there's a lot of shirtless and bikini scenes. There's also a lot of underwater scenes, which to me are boring as hell. I've always found underwater scenes to be such a struggle for me. But the first half of the movie is a lot more entertaining because they are kind of trying to find this treasure, and there's a lot of question marks on whether they'll find it and then what to do with it when they do. And they get excited about potential wealth that could come from it and their future, and then things start to get mixed up with different pirates and local bandits around the town, and it becomes kind of like a crime thriller. And I think the second half just starts to kind of play out by numbers and becomes a lot less interesting. Jessica Alba's screen time isn't as much as you might think it is. I think that it does start to focus a lot in the second half on notice how I said the second half wasn't as good. It does start to focus on the other characters in the second half. I do think her performance is really good in this one, though. She does have to cry and get very emotional. And the sharks, man, they really shark it out in this one. A lot of shark scenes. There's some interesting scripting things here that I don't love. Like characters just use each other's names a little bit too much. That's something I always notice in a script. When we're talking one-on-one, we may very well never even exchange names outside of potentially a greeting. But even then, maybe not. So whenever I watch a movie and characters are saying each other's names directly to each other in one-on-one conversations, it's just really jarring to me, and it's a sign of weak screenwriting in my opinion. So that happens here. Don't love that. Into the Blue. It's an iconic Jessica Alba movie, though. Moving on. Okay, 2007 brings us to a movie called The 10. I had to Google to see, is she really that big of a part of this movie? Because it's an ensemble cast, kind of like a drunken retelling of the 10 Commandments or something like that. It's akin to Drunk History. I watched her scenes. It was 5 minutes, but she plays across Paul Rudd, and it's literally like a bit. They're just 2 bits. The 10, not a part of our list. Okay, that brings us to Fantastic Four 2, Rise of the Silver Surfer, which came out in 2007, and according to people on the internet, this is where they find Jessica Alba to be the absolute most attractive, which I found very surprising to me, because I always thought the fake blonde wig just really stood out like a sore thumb to me, in my memory. And then I watched the movie and I was like, oh shit, I see it. So 6 out of 5 for attractiveness. Oh fuck. I know, breaking points. The movie though, performance was pretty good. But the sad thing is, because I'm sitting here talking about her attractiveness and rating it, right? I am again not the person to speak on this. And if someone wants to bring their sexuality to the forefront of their own choosing, great. That's totally cool with me. But this movie in particular ended up being something that Jessica Alba almost quit acting over, because apparently the director Tim Story, which I wanted to throw his name out because it sounds like she was constantly criticized throughout the film for acting too good, you could say, for crying in a way that wasn't pretty. And every time she tried to get into a scene or do some sort of performance, the direction was do it but look prettier. So hold your face more still, don't put so much expression into your face, and just try to appeal to the audience. That is fucking disgusting. Yeah, so I hate that. So it's weird to talk about Fantastic Four 2007 now. But the movie itself is pretty decent. I don't know. Jessica Alba actually has a lot more to do in this one because she connects with the Silver Surfer. Her part is more interesting to me in this movie than the last one. I think that's why it's so disappointing that her acting was kind of being handcuffed, essentially, because I actually see a lot of growth from her throughout her acting career. Since like Honey to this, I feel like she's actually come a long way. And seeing her in this movie, I feel like she actually does still bring through another level of performance that I really like. But I couldn't help but focus on the lack of emotiveness, like facially. And that is a dramatic difference from even the first Fantastic Four, where I feel like she was able to really bring more emotive facial features. And here it was, it was constrained. So it's disappointing to me. I think the movie's pretty good. It's cheesy, but to me, I think it's a little bit better than the first one. Maybe. Actually, I don't really know. It was just as fun for me. It was just as fine. But the new Fantastic Four movie actually follows a very similar plot line to this one, and that's interesting. Okay, we're moving forward. Holy shit, I might need to take a little break. 2007, again, comes Good Luck Chuck. And this stars Dane Cook, who I was never really a big fan of as a comedian, but I actually do like him as an actor. Like Dan in real life, an Employee of the Month, I think he does a really good job in. And I like him in Good Luck Chuck, even though the movie is a little bit more crass for my liking, but his character's really likable and lovable, and Jessica Alba's very likable and lovable character as well. She plays this really quirky, ditzy character who's always fumbling around and making mistakes, and thus is the explanation for her still being single, because in all of these types of movies there has to be an explanation for why she's single. But this is one of her more popular and successful romantic comedy films. I do think that it's a really charming movie, but it has that, I guess it's 2007, it makes sense that's kind of right after this really big raunchy comedy renaissance where movies would be really raunchy for 30 or 45 minutes and then they would be like, but actually we're sweet and cute. And that's kind of what this movie is. It's like, it's very raunchy at the beginning, but it then becomes this kind of sweet romantic comedy. I like the romantic comedy side of it more, and I think that she gives a really good performance here. I think she's really good when she does play a character a little bit more close to just a normal person, like then when you add in the kind of quirkiness elements and the oddness to her character, I think that only adds more charm to it. And so she does a great job. I really like this movie. I think it's fun. Moving on. Meet Bill. This one also came out in 2007, and I actually watched this one with my wife. This is one I actually convinced her to watch with me because my wife loves the kind of like coming of age or grainy, like Dan in real life style films, and Meet Bill kind of gave the vibes that it would be that. And it was that. We actually really enjoyed this movie. However, Jessica Alba is only in it, well, she's introduced like 45 minutes in. It takes like a pretty long while. Once she's in the movie, she's kind of a part of the crew. Well, Bill is basically going through a midlife crisis, and he kind of takes this boy under his wing, played by Logan Lerman, and then they eventually meet Jessica Alba's character at the mall, and Logan Lerman really kind of has a crush on her, and it's a little odd how they kind of come together because Jessica Alba is supposed to be someone in her 20s and Logan Lerman is a high school student. So it's kind of a reverse, like, never been kissed thing. And it gets a little cringe at a certain point because he does, like, ask her out and she kind of just plays with him and is like, all right, I'll do it. And then she kind of becomes a part of their, like, trio of friends, and they're just hanging around town together and doing stuff, which it is funny, it's charming, and I'm glad that they don't try to like force a relationship between her and the Bill character, who's going through kind of, like I said, his midlife crisis, and he's currently married. There's like a problematic scene where they all spend the night in a tent together, and it's implied that Bill sleeps with Jessica Alba's friend, and it's not really documented what happens between Jessica Alba and Logan Lerman, but either way, even if they all slept together in a tent and Bill slept with the other girl, they're still like having sex in a room with like an underage, like 17-year-old. So you can't think too hard about it. I don't know why I'm going down those rabbit holes, but thankfully it's addressed that Jessica Alba really just sees him like a younger brother and does not take to the advancements of Logan Lerman, and it's clarified later on. So thankfully for the whole age thing. But it was a fun movie. I actually really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. After I just talked about the little problematic scene, I just think that's one of those kind of like oversights that films weren't thinking about at the time. But yeah, I liked Aaron Eckhart. He was really goofy and funny in it. What happened to Aaron Eckhart, by the way? Like, I really enjoy him in this, and I would have liked to see him. I remember that movie too about selling cigarettes that I thought was really fun that came out around this time too. So he's a pretty good actor. I really enjoy him, and seeing him in a comedic role like this was really fun. Hopefully he makes a comeback on the acting scene, or if he's already made a comeback and I'm not aware of it, then let me know in the comments below that I'm just a big idiot. Oh, and Jessica Alba's performance was kind of rough, actually, in this one. And only in parts, but she tried to play like a bratty store clerk, and those moments didn't work. And then in other scenes, there was like kind of a harsh contrast because she seemed very mature and a little bit more of her age, and I really liked her in those scenes. So yeah, performance was a little weak, and she also didn't have like a ton of screen time because she came in about halfway through. So, meet Bill. We'll find out where it ends up on this list. Damn, she was in a lot in 2007. The next one is Awake. This is also from 2007 and stars Jessica Alba along with Hayden Christensen. This movie was trippy as f***. The opening title crawl scared the living shit out of me because it talks about the very realistic probability of being awake during a medical surgery, a medical procedure, not being able to move your body, but being able to feel and think throughout a surgery. Feel the pain. Now I'm deathly afraid of going under for like anything. So yeah, the concept right out of the gate was scary. Jessica Alba is Hayden Christensen's girlfriend. Towards the beginning of the film, before he's getting ready for this surgery, he proposes to Jessica Alba, and they are going to share this happy life together. Well, he goes under surgery. He's awake during the whole process, and his fiance, Jessica Alba, and his mom are out in the lobby and are completely unaware of the fact that he's dealing with this. And he starts to have this kind of out-of-body experience. Well, he basically gets out of his body. And eventually, the movie gets kind of weird. He starts exploring the hospital grounds and trying to like get help. And then there's a couple of twists and turns. Some pretty wild twists, actually. One of which I was more okay with. And then the other one, which was the paranormal kind of twist to it, or like the... Okay, quick spoiler alert. Skip like 2 minutes ahead if you don't want to know how Awake ends. Basically, the movie gets f***ing crazy because Jessica Alba turns out to have plotted with the doctor to actually kill Hayden Christensen in the surgery so that she could inherit Hayden Christensen's entire inheritance because he's super rich. That's her plot, so she ends up being the villain with the doctor. But the mom kind of catches on to this, so the mom gets involved, and after Hayden Christensen dies, because he dies on the table, there's not another organ donor to give up their heart for him in like a short enough amount of time. So she finds another doctor who she trusts, and she kills herself, and she transplants her own heart into Hayden Christensen. But then there's this whole scene where they meet in the afterlife, and she's basically like, by the way, your fiance tried to kill you. Also, goodbye, go enjoy your life. What the fuck? This movie was nuts. Anyway, spoiler is over. No more spoiler, but Awake, it was crazy. Moving on. Oh, something though that I noticed about Jessica Alba's character names. She's played a Sam, a Cam, a Max, and another Sam. 2008, The Eye. I remember this one coming out. I didn't go see it. This is a Jessica Alba-led horror film in which she is blind. There's finally a treatment in which she can actually maybe be able to see again. They're going to do like a transplant. She's actually really happy being blind, and she lives a really good life. And it's more her sister, Parker Posey, who feels like great regret because of something in her past that probably caused this blindness. And she's really pushing for this surgery. Well, she gets the surgery, and now she's struggling to actually be able to see still. She's having all these problems. But the main problem is she's seeing a bunch of f***ing ghosts. Yeah, so she's scared as shit because now her eyes are just seeing all this other stuff that's happening. If you haven't seen this movie, another quick light spoiler alert. It turns out she's seeing what the eyes from the person that donated them had seen before they died. When she discovers that, she then feels a desire to kind of solve the mystery and catch the people behind the murder of the person who had her eyes before her. So that's when the story kind of gets whack. I mean, it's a cool concept. I know it's based on like an actual Japanese film, and I haven't seen the original. I imagine that's probably better. The Eye was not that great, but I will say I do think Jessica Alba, she really holds her own as like the only lead actor. I also think she does a really good job playing a blind lady. This is one of her best performances, in my opinion. So if you haven't seen it, I guess watch it or don't. Okay, we're cruising, baby. Another 2008 film, The Love Guru. This movie is a Mike Myers-led spoof comedy, kind of like Austin Powers. I had not seen this one before because it has a really terrible rating on IMDb, and sometimes I just am biased and I see a rating like that and I say, nope. Maybe it was late at night, maybe there was some alcohol involved, but I had a really good time watching this movie. It was really funny. There was some shit I did not like at all, but there was enough consistent humor and consistent jokes, and the Love Guru himself, all of his PowerPoint presentations and his like acronyms were just killing me. They were so funny. And then Jessica Alba in this movie plays the unrealistic love interest for the Love Guru. And again, we had to come up with some reason why she's still single. So the quirky thing in this movie was that she's actually cursed and cannot fall in love because of this curse that's happening. And I can't remember the threat of the curse, if I'm being honest. I don't know if someone was supposed to die or whatever, but there was this whole reason in this big, long explanation of why she was single. She's a business manager for a prominent LA hockey team, probably the Kings. Can't remember because I don't watch hockey. The Maple Leafs. She hires the Love Guru to help the main character get his swag back because his ex-girlfriend cheated on him with Justin Timberlake's character. So, I don't know, it's actually a pretty funny concept. And another real standout for me was Vern Troyer as the head coach of the hockey team. That was great casting, and he's so good in it. So, it was fun to see him play something that wasn't mini-me. However, some of the jokes towards him, they just get a little too cruel, in my opinion. I know he was great friends with Mike Myers, and they did a lot of stuff together. So, unfortunately, he did pass away recently. So, rest in peace, Vern Troyer. You will be missed. I really loved Vern Troyer in this movie. He was, like I said, a huge standout to me. But yeah, I think it's a fun movie. And Jessica Alba, she actually nails the tone and the style of humor very well. Like, she understood what kind of movie she was in. And I thought her delivery was very on point. I mean, her performance was as good as it could have been for this type of movie. So I'm going to score it accordingly. And her screen time was pretty good too. Like, she was one of the main three characters. She's in it quite a bit. I don't know whether it's like the fact that a lot of these movies have just kind of been subpar or what. Maybe I'm just fucking in the head. I recommend the really shitty mid-2000s comedy, The Love Guru, because I thought it was really funny. Okay, 2010, The Killer Inside Me. This movie stars Casey Affleck, Jessica Alba, and Kate Hudson, and is a period piece following Casey Affleck's sheriff of a small town. The first 30 minutes, I was so hooked into this movie. I mean, Casey Affleck is a great actor. The tone, the vibe, I'm like, damn, I'm watching a good movie finally. That's what it felt like. And Jessica Alba, like, in my notes, I gave her a 12 out of 10 on performance. Spoiler alert. I'll adjust that for the end. But I was tripping because she came in with this accent, but it just worked. Like, I was like, what the hell? She was doing a really good job being a character actor in this movie. So I thought she was absolutely phenomenal in this movie. But I guess, spoiler, she dies 30 minutes in the most gruesome, brutal, awful way. And we see it all. It's like hard to, like, I don't even want to talk about it. If you've seen the movie, then you know. If you haven't seen the movie, like, and you don't want to watch something that's really dark, where you're just then you end up following Casey Affleck, who's a very dark character we discover, who's just f***ed in the head. If you don't want to watch a movie like that, then just don't watch this. It sucks because I was really getting into it. It's not the fact that she died. It's Casey Affleck becomes very abusive, and he's cheating on his actual wife, Kate Hudson, with Jessica Alba, and he decides the easiest solution will be to kill her himself, and he does it in the most abusive visual way that I've seen in a movie. I read some trivia about this after, and this movie actually premiered at the Sundance Film Festival here in Park City, Utah, which is just like a 30-minute drive from here. That's me name dropping. Sorry. Festival's moving in a year to Colorado, so I only have a short time to name drop it. Anyway, Jessica Alba actually walked out of the movie apparently halfway through, and a lot of people followed her. A lot of people left too. So the movie, I'm not saying it doesn't have any merit. I struggled with it. I didn't like watching that scene. And as the movie went on, like I continued to watch it because She did play a part throughout the movie still through flashbacks. So she's still in it. But yeah, spoiler for the end. She's not dead. And at the end, she comes in with a completely deformed face. And she shows up and she decides to come back to Casey Affleck. And he's like, oh my God, my one true love. And they go up and to hug each other. And then he just stabs her. And then they all get shot by the police. And they die in each other's arms. And that's the fucking end. I don't know, man. Not for me. Not for you, probably either. Someone that likes this movie, tell me why you like this movie, please. Moving on. Valentine's Day, 2010. I saw this movie forever ago, and I thought to myself, what? Jessica Alba's in that? I didn't remember that, so I had to look up whether or not she was in very much of it. She's not. It's an ensemble cast. It's like a Love Actually type of movie. Well, Jessica Alba is the small part of this. So I watched the scenes online with her and Ashton Kutcher. They're whatever. I mean, she's good in them. Also 2010, Robert Rodriguez' Machete, starring Danny Trejo and Jessica Alba, and Robert De Niro and Michelle Rodriguez and quite a few other actors. I'm surprised I really actually haven't seen this movie, but the opening sequence is absolutely balls to the walls, hilarious, awesome, over-the-top action. Machete's just this wild character if you haven't seen Machete, but then the rest of the movie does kind of slow down, and Jessica Alba actually plays an agent for ICE. Thank God she has a character arc that, changes her whole perspective. And it's a very pro-Mexico, pro-Latin American type of movie. And so, yeah, it's actually got a pretty cool message and theme to it. Jessica Alba does a good job in it. I think she fits very well in, Robert Rodriguez directing. I think he oftentimes gets the best performances out of her. This movie, though, overall, it's not as fun as you want it to be. The trailer before Grindhouse and the first 10 minutes of this movie are the two best things from Machete, in my opinion. I think the rest of this movie just becomes a little bit too slow. And honestly, it's very, very indie feeling, which I don't have any problems with. But sometimes it's they're just using the lighting they have in certain rooms and it feels that way. It could have done from a more brisk, fast-paced story, It's just a little too slow for a movie called Machete that's ridiculous as Machete is. Another 2010 one. This is An Invisible Sign. What to say about this one without being mean? Another 2010 one. Little Fockers. Skipping this one because, God, after the amount of Jessica Alba movies I watched, I know she's not in this for more than 30%. And if she is, it's on the line. So I didn't want to do it. I'm sorry. I like Meet the Parents, so I probably should have just watched it, but I had too many movies to get to. Now I'm feeling guilty about the Invisible Sign thing. Look, I like the message. I like what it was trying to do. It appealed to some people, probably. A little bit cringy to me, but positive messaging. Here's an opportunity to be nice. 2011, Spy Kids 4, All the Time in the World. Jessica Alba, Joel McHale are the parents now. There's 2 new kids. It's no more Judy and Carmen, whose names I cannot believe I just remembered right there. But I was secretly hoping at the beginning of this film that Jessica Alba would very quickly just be a very small part. Turns out, no, she's a pretty main character in it throughout. She plays the stepmom of these 2 kids, and the son really likes her, and the daughter has a lot of problems with her because, her mom died and she was very close to her mom. But anyway, whole spy adventure goes on, and Jeremy Piven plays the villain. There was a really heartfelt moment and monologue with him at the end that I was like, damn, Jeremy Piven, you're bringing it. And I feel like everyone just kind of brings it in Robert Rodriguez movies. If you're not aware, Robert Rodriguez has directed quite a few of the movies on this list. He's done the Sin City movies, the Machete movies, and the Spy Kids movies. And what I think is really cool about Robert Rodriguez is that he sometimes lets his kids write movies for him, which is how Spy Kids happened in the first place, or Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Whether or not they're for us or not, I think it's cool that he kind of makes a film for his kids, and then he goes back to making a film for himself, and then his kids again. And Spy Kids 4 is another movie for his kids. I wasn't expecting much from the plot, and I got more than I bargained for, honestly. I thought the whole step-parent thing was actually really relatable for me. I'm actually a step-parent of 2 kids myself, so maybe I felt a little bit more connected to it than others might. But Jessica Alba, A, she had some badass spy scenes, and B, in a movie with ridiculous, sometimes bad dialogue and bad scenarios, she brought gravitas. She delivered stuff with conviction, and I was like, holy shit, she's really good in this movie. Sorry for my language. I was impressed. I liked Spy Kids 4 a lot more than I expected to. Joel McHale had a pretty small role in it. That's the kind of role I was expecting Jessica Alba to have. But no, she goes on the mission with the kids. So this kind of actually made me wish she was in a Bond movie at some point, because her whole like spy outfit and the way she was doing spy shit was actually really kick-ass. And attractiveness, 6 out of 5. ACOD 2013, or otherwise known as Adult Children of Divorce. This movie really baited me because Jessica Alba is right there on the poster. After finishing it, she's in 2 scenes, but she's introduced just early enough for me to think, this is the plot line that's going to continue. Yeah, continued for all of 1 other scene towards the end. That's it. Literally 2 scenes. But I'm actually glad I watched it. I had fun with it. Her first scene was also kind of just like bad acting, and her second scene was really good acting. So again, a very split thing. I'm not really sure why that keeps happening. I didn't even mention Jane Lynch. Oh yeah. That was like the whole best part about this movie. It was like Jane Lynch was the therapist and Catherine O'Hara was his mom. Those are 2 of my favorite female comedic actresses. They were in enough scenes that kept the movie like laugh out loud hilarious. If you need a reason that's not being a sad middle-aged white guy to watch ACOD, then watch it for these 2 because they're really funny in it. But don't watch it for Jessica Alba because she's barely in it. 2013, Machete Kills. This is the sequel to Machete, and Jessica Alba dies 6 minutes in. Okay, another Robert Rodriguez film, Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, 2014, released in 3D. This is the sequel to Sin City, obviously. Being that it is, it's also like 4 different vignettes, different stories. And again, Jessica Alba has the honor of being kind of the most present character throughout. If you were to call anyone the main character, you could call her that. She has segments throughout the film, and it builds to her segment as the finale again. And I think she does a great job holding her own, being the main character here. I do think Jessica Alba is given more to work with in this specific movie than she is the first one. This is a further exploration of just how broken she is, and the unfortunate thing is that the storylines, just these 4 stories in general, are just not as good as the stories in Sin City Volume 1. So I really like this movie. It's definitely worth watching. It's still a hell of a good time. My enjoyment factor for it is very high. I think the Sin City movies, the style of them is just so appealing to me. It's very fun. Easy to put on. 2014, Stretch, which is about a Stretch limo driver, and his nickname is Stretch. Patrick Wilson plays Stretch, and Jessica Alba plays the front desk woman at the limo shop that he works for. She really only has like 5 scenes, so yeah, I kind of got baited again, but I kept watching anyway, because this is actually a pretty good movie. But I can't add it to the list of Jessica Alba movies that are going to be rated at the end. She's just not in it enough. Stretch. 2014, Some Kind of Beautiful. This movie automatically gets attractiveness points times 2. Yeah, that's right. We're going to get 10 out of 10 for attractiveness. The whole category just widened, because not only does this movie star Jessica Alba, but it stars the one and only Pierce Brosnan. This is my dream come true. Some Kind of Beautiful is a movie made for me. And I act like I like foreign films. I act like I like good indie films, even action films. But the truth of it is, the type of movie I could put on any day, anytime, is a romantic comedy. I actually watched this movie back when it came out, and so I was looking forward to watching it again for this, and it delivered again. I think it's really funny. It's super underrated. Pierce Brosnan does a great job as the professor who plays our main character and falls in love with a student played by Jessica Alba. And the age gap is obvious, and that causes chaos in his personal life and with his ex, who's played by Salma Hayek. But it really just plays into all of these tropes of the kind of like rich, chauvinistic kind of playboy character that he is, and him trying to grapple with what should his life be about. But ultimately, Jessica Alba becomes pregnant with his child, and now he's actually stuck having that be like a real committed thing. Like, oh shit, I've got to see this through. It's a love triangle movie. It's really funny. It leans into the ridiculousness of it all, and it has good heart at the end of it all. It has a meaningful message, and I think Jessica Alba is really good in it. She does really well in comedy where she plays adjacent to like a real life character. Some Kind of Beautiful. Big fan, personally. Underrated. Okay. 2016, The Veil, or The Veil, however that's pronounced. At this point in the Jessica Alba filmography, you really start getting to miss, the Fantastic Four, The Eye, The Love Guru. Stuff that you might think aren't that great of films, but holy shit. I turned this on and I was like 20 minutes in and I was like, oh my God, this cannot be the movie. This is so bad. Thankfully, I double checked and it wasn't the movie because 2 movies called The Veil came out in 2016 and I was watching the wrong one. Thank God. The Veil that Jessica Alba was in is not so bad, actually. By comparison to the last movie, it felt like the best movie I'd ever seen. But the color grading was totally f***ed. It reminded me of film school in like 2010, 11. Just when you first kind of start doing color grading techniques, you're like, I'm going to make this super gray and grungy and grimy. But it's just wiping out all of the color and life from the movie, but not in like a pleasing or thoughtful way. So yeah, that was not something I loved about it. But the movie's pretty good. Starring Thomas Jane as a cult leader that's basically Jim Jones, and Jessica Alba as a documentary filmmaker who is going to this abandoned site where she thinks she'll be able to find a bunch of remnants of this whole self-massacre thing that happened that What's-His-Face led a while ago. I think Jessica Alba is a very convincing documentary filmmaker in it, actually. And her whole crew, they have a decent relationship with each other, and she does good in horror movies. It's something that's become a commonality. Some of her best performances have come from horror movies. 2015, Barely Lethal. Couldn't bring myself to watch it. It was obvious to me. I watched the trailer. I was like, there's no way Jessica Alba is in this movie for very much of it. So if I'm wrong, my bad. I'm sorry. The movie I did watch was The Mechanic Resurrection from 2016. But I wish I didn't watch it. Man, I want to give myself to it. Jessica Alba's, again, she becomes I think this picture is from that movie. She's pretty good in it. She's like another agent character that falls in love with Jason Statham, and there's like a whole 30-minute romance at the beginning of the movie, and then she gets captured and she's barely in it for the rest of the movie. I'm sick of that shit, man. I'm here to watch Jessica Alba movies. Stop taking her out of the movie for the majority of it. But whatever. So we continue on with the movie, and there's just a really frustrating type of cinematography combined with what I think is a complete lack of action choreography. So the action is just not even appealing or interesting. There's this big scene where Jason Statham climbs under this see-through pool that's on a huge tower, and the guy he's trying to kill dies. He breaks through the glass. The guy falls through. Jason Statham, slingshots back down to the side of the building, and he's dangling off the side of the building. And then there's all these news reports and news footage showing later of like, oh, this guy died. Who did it? I'm like, fucking Jason Statham's right there, just hanging off the building. Like, how do they not know who this person is or like what happened? He's in the camera shot. You shouldn't try to make logic out of these things. It's just, I was kind of secretly hoping The Mechanic Resurrection would be one of those movies that was like a blind spot for me. I'd be like, damn, that was a cool action movie. No, it wasn't. It's not worth watching. Don't watch it. It also just becomes Into the Blue 2 in the last 30 minutes because there's literally the same boat scene that's from the first movie with Jessica Alba tied up on the boat wearing a nearly identical outfit, looking basically the exact same, and Jason Statham comes onto the boat and has to save her. It's the same goddamn scene from that movie. The same scene. Okay. Killers Anonymous. Let's calm down. We're just going to watch the next Jessica Alba movie. Killers Anonymous, 2019. Me, dude. She dies 9 minutes in, which honestly I was okay with because it meant another movie I didn't have to watch. She's one of the main 3 people on the poster. One of the main 3 people on the poster. So I guess it just proves that if you have Jessica Alba in your movie, put her on your poster. Baby, baby, baby. Didn't watch it. I realize I sound like mad at this point of the video. I guess I'm not mad that she's not in them, but I'm mad at the fact that I've been baited into watching so many movies that I thought she was going to be a bigger part of, and she's just not. Okay, there's a list of other movies here that I was able to deduce that she's basically not in, because, like, Baby, Baby, Baby and Dear Eleanor. I mean, honestly, it looked like her performance in Dear Eleanor could have been really good, but granted, the trailer made it look like she was going to be in one scene, and the casting, she was pretty far down. So at this point, when I look up the movie poster, and at the very end of the cast list, it says, with Jessica Alba, that's a skip. Even if she's one of the main 3 people on the poster, you just skip it, okay? Killers Anonymous, by the way, not that good of a movie. Sorry. So during that period between 2015 and 2025, there have been numerous other films like El Camino Christmas and stuff too that I skipped because she's really just barely in, according to the internet and what I could deduce. So it brings us to our final installment, which is Trigger Warning, which is the film that came out last year, 2024, and was kind of her big comeback to acting, because up until this point, which also probably explains all of the really small side roles and things she's had since The Veil in 2016, she really had taken a step back from acting and focused on things like Her Honest Company, and she did do some TV series and reality television shows, so some different stuff that she explored. This was kind of her big return to lead acting role, and this to me felt like her saying, I want to do a John Wick movie. So here's her attempt at that. I don't blame her for this movie being bad as much as I blame like every other factor, but Trigger Warning is not a good movie, and I was looking forward to it. I was like, Jessica Alba Netflix movie, I'm gonna watch this. But it has all these really frustrating editing techniques where action would begin, and it used to be kind of a trick as a filmmaker that if someone punches another character, you cut like 1 or 2 frames out of that punch so it looks a little bit faster. But if you do it too frequently or you cut too many frames out, then it just gives this really hyper, unrealistic feel. And it just felt like that was the trick that the editors used throughout this whole movie. Every single action scene is just like this slow momentum coming up and then all of a sudden just flies. You know, like the natural human body just doesn't move with the kind of speed that apparently the editors make Jessica Alba or anybody else look like they can fight in this. Performance-wise, I also just don't think she's that great. I don't think anyone's good in it. So I don't know what the real problem is, but there's just some really shitty scenes in this movie and really bad dialogue. And if we're going to continue to talk about like cheap editing and stuff, I feel like Netflix movies, they're just kind of the new made-for-TV movie. And that's not all of them, because sometimes they pick up movies or they produce movies like, you know, the Knives Out sequels and stuff like that. But they also do have a lot of like the made-for-TV type feel. And the way that the made-for-TV feel or the modern Netflix feel is just something I don't like. I don't like the look of this movie. But yeah, one of the editing techniques that I noticed throughout it is they'd put this vignette on the screen, so it's like black around the edges or like it fades in like that just to kind of bring the focus in. And it's just like a cheap editing technique, again, I remember doing in high school to like help build a focus point for your audience. And those shouldn't be being used in big budget Hollywood films, or if they are, they should be used discreetly. Honestly, that's the least of the problems with this movie. Her costume design too, like the whole last bit, she's going on this whole action killing spree and she's wearing these like khaki pants that are pulled up super high and like baggy, and I'm like, what the hell is she wearing with this jacket and the like tropical shirt? And it's just like it's a bad look. I hate saying that because I'm rooting for Jessica Alba. I wanted her to come back. As if you couldn't tell, I feel like I've been optimistic about a lot of the movies in her catalog. I think that she actually has been the bright spot of a lot of these films. She gets a lot of flack for her acting, but I think a lot of times it's wrongfully directed at her when there's bad writing or bad film she's a part of. But she, in my opinion, is a bright spot of most of the films that she's in. However, that is not the case with Trigger Warning. I think she is a little bit of part of the problem with it as well. I'm not a fan of Trigger Warning. Yeah. As this video went on, you can feel the exhaustion of watching all these movies probably coming off of me. And so maybe it's unfair of how like brutal I'm being towards some of these last films, because that's just the mood I was in when I was watching them. I was hoping for like happy surprises. And when I put on the second half of Trigger Warning, I was like, maybe this will actually just really pick up and I'll really enjoy it. And it's like, no, that was not the case. Before we get to the moment you've all been waiting for, which is the actual ranking and score of these movies, which I will fly through, by the way, I wanted to just quickly reflect on the journey that we've just been on. Arguably much tougher journey for me than it was for you. But hey, we made it through. We talked about all the Jessica Alba movies, except for that one animated movie, which I'm just remembering now. Has there been another high-profile actress or actor similar to Jessica Alba with a more unimpressive film career? I mean, Jessica Alba only has one commercially and critically successful film in her catalog, and that was Sin City, of which she's really just part of an ensemble. She has no other real positively reviewed film. However, she was never the worst part in any movie. Or rather, a movie wasn't worse for having her in it. And it makes me sad to hear her reflect on her own career and talk about how she never received any positive reviews for her performances. Was it a matter of her just not getting into the right roles? Or was it really just because studios and audiences wanted her in specific types of roles? I really don't know. And that's because I didn't do any actual tangible research on this subject besides just watch all of her movies. But I'm here to say, Jessica Alba, I think you're a good actress, and I actually dig a lot of your performances. It was evident to me watching that you strayed towards choosing roles that were more interesting or varied character parts that I was not honestly anticipating from you. You love how I'm talking to you guys as if you're Jessica Alba? I mean, I guess you could be watching this, in which case, if you are, I'm really sorry about my totally negative review of Trigger Warning, but I am genuinely rooting for a comeback for Jessica Alba in the film world. I think we need her back on our screens. I'm hoping that the next segment of her film career is a more positive and successful run of films, if not commercially, at least personally. Okay, that all being said, let's rank these f***s. 24 of the films that I watched made this final list. The highest possible score that a film could have received based on my metrics was 40 points. And honestly, the lowest score that they could have received was at least 5, because I gave a guaranteed 5-point attractiveness score to every single film. As a tiebreaker, I chose screen time, because ultimately we're looking for the best Jessica Alba experience, which means she needs to be on screen. Some of these results actually surprised me. In 24th place, The Mechanic Resurrection with 19 points. Punks with 22.5. The Killer Inside Me with 24. Trash movie. Sleeping Dictionary also with 24, but more screen time. Idle Hands with 25 points. An Invisible Sign, also with 25 points, more screen time. Trigger Warning, 25.5. Stretch, 26. Meet Bill, 27. Machete, also with 27. The Veil, 28. Spy Kids, All the Time in the World, with a tie of 28, but more screen time, also more attractiveness. Honey, 29. Awake, 29.5. Alright, we're into the top 10 with Fantastic Four 2, Rise of the Silver Surfer, 29.5. Into the Blue, 30.5. Some Kind of Beautiful, 30.5. I had to readjust the score. Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, 30.5. The Eye, 31. And in 5th place, Fantastic Four, 31. Sin City, 33. The Love Guru, 33. Good Luck Chuck, 33. Yeah, there's a 3-way tie there. And the number 1 Jessica Alba movie, nobody guessed it, probably, but most of all me, I didn't guess this. Paranoid with 35 points. 35! Wow, okay. So definitively, Paranoid is the ultimate Jessica Alba experience. There is no arguing with it. Paranoid was kind of a total sleeper hit. I'd never heard of it. I really enjoyed that movie. She is in it like the whole time, so okay. Thanks for sticking with me on this journey. If you liked this type of video, then let me know in the comments who another actor or actress you would like to see me tackle next, because I'll probably do another one of these. Although I don't have anyone in mind yet for who it's gonna be. So if you guys suggest people, make sure they don't have more than 29 movies, please, because that was too many for me. You'll probably be seeing another Jessica Alba follow-up video coming soon, discussing sexuality in film, specifically Jessica Alba's journey related to sexuality in film. So if you're interested in that, then subscribe to the channel, because that'll be coming up sometime probably later this month. Thank you guys for watching this. It was a really fun passion project for me to make. Like, subscribe, and I love you guys.